PTF and Nick Tammaro back with you on the In the Money Media YouTube channel and the In the Money Media Players Podcast. Breeders' Cup coverage continues. This video/audio brought to you by our friends over at TwinSpires Tournaments. TwinSpires.com. Not only is there a robust lineup of excellent contests you can get involved in, day out, if you go over there to TwinSpires.com and navigate over to the Tournaments tab, but you can also play the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge right there on TwinSpires this year. You can get registered for that. Go to TwinSpires.com and navigate to that Tournaments tab for so much more information. One of the things when you're playing the BCBC, Nick, or really when you're handicapping it all, studying form, whatever you want to call it, an evaluation of the favorites. We thought we would use this odd day in the calendar right before the pre-entries are going to come out to take a look at some of the current anti-post favorites in these various Breeders' Cup races and give you our thoughts on them. Some of them, when we're talking about the foreign horses, we're going to have much more content on that coming forward. We're going to focus more on the domestic ones, but we will name check some of the foreign horses you might want to start watching some tape on. We're going to start off with the Juvenile Turf Sprint and the domestic horse that I wanted to ask you about, Nick, Schwarzenegger. This horse, gosh, I don't know, was it half a dozen tries before he finally got into a race? Currently now off the win, listed as 4-1 in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. What do you think of that price? Would that be a buy, a sell, or a hold? And what do you think of Schwarzenegger in general?
I wanted the sizzle to match the steak, and eventually it did, in that he ran, effectively on speed figures, he ran the same race both times. So he got a 77 buyer speed figure each time. Not the easiest races to make buyer speed figures for. One thing about Schwarzenegger, probably a la a horse like Governor Sam last year, is he's very fast. I wonder how much other speed is going to go. You look through some of the long range PPs, and a lot of the domestic horses aren't really that quick, which could definitely work in Schwarzenegger's favor. I just have a hard time taking 4-1 on a horse like this. So he would be a sell for me at 4-1. I would need a bit better price in order to get excited.
It does seem like we're going to have a robust group of Euros in here. True Love currently listed at the top of the market. Some question if this would be the spot or if it would be in the Juvenile Fillies turf for her, though the same connections have a more heralded one in that race that we'll get to in a little bit. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, we're at a point now where, as much as I want to say it's such a different game going around a bend, the Flying Five for the Euros, if True Love were to come here, it would be off of a 6 furlong straight race. It'd be very sharp, but their class is such that I'm not holding anything against them in the turf sprints anymore. Where do you stand generally in both this race and the turf sprint that we'll talk to when we get to Saturday about Euro participation in these races?
Yeah, I mean, I think, this race, a lot like some divisions in this country, go as the horsemen who primarily have horses in those divisions go. And it feels like, years where Chad doesn't have a marquee filly and mare turf horse, that division suffers a little bit. Years where Wesley doesn't have a marquee turf sprinter or juvenile turf sprinter, that division's a little bit weaker categorically. And I think that's kind of been the case in the recent years. Schwarzenegger is up there in terms of a quality horse, that the type that Wesley hasn't had maybe in some time. And I do think that with the certainty of firm turf, you have more of an opportunity for horses to come over that really do mean business. So is Charles Darwin not a possibility anymore?
I had seen his name, and let me go back to the betting right now. He wasn't in the top 2 in the betting when I was just looking at it. But yeah, I mean, as far as Schwarzenegger goes, yeah, Charles Darwin is out of the betting for this race at the sharpest book. Let me go back to the Juvenile Turf and see if he appears there, or the word might just be that he is not going to be because, I mean, he is more of a sprinter. So, yeah, they're not going to be making the trip with him. The thing about Schwarzenegger that I do like, and I agree, they're not giving anything away at 4-1. I would be holdy, selly on that right now. But Wesley Ward, turf sprint, horse that's going to probably have the lead in terms of like horizontals. Not one that I'm, really rushing to be
take on. I agree.
Opposing either. I'm going to be a little more wishy-washy there. Let's talk about the Juvenile Fillies, specifically Explora for the Baffert team. This one, imperious in victory, last out in the Oak Leaf. I'm seeing 7-2 at this stage. It's a fairly crowded, I think, in the end, going to be with a bunch of horses who are going to be 6-1, 8-1 sub in this spot. How do you rate Explorer at 7-2?
Yeah, with Tommy Joe's effort in the Alcibiades, 7-2 feels pretty fair on Explorer. That was a good step forward last time out. She ran well. I haven't seen any Thoroughgraph figs, but she got an 83 buyer. I think she got a pretty solid time form US figure. Bob took the blinkers off, which has preceded some good efforts in the past on multiple occasions. So I would say she's probably a buy at 7-2. I think that's a fair price. I do think it's a contentious group. What people are going to see when they get their PPs for this race is that you really have slightly differing versions of the same horse. You've got a lot of horses that have earned buyer speed figures between 72 and 82, and the majority of them are in the 70s. So the fact that Tommy Joe didn't stretch out, I think indicates that you're probably supposed to take Explorer with the step forward that she took, and look at Bob getting another Juvenile Breeders' Cup Juvenile win.
We'll pivot now to talk about the Juvenile Fillies Turf, a race where it does look like we are going to have major international participation in the form of Precise for the Coolmore team. This one has incredible form coming in here. A couple of Group 1 victories, 4 in a row. It's so interesting to see Coolmore so willing these days to send their better ones over. She's currently listed at evens in the market, and you could talk about that if you wish. But the one I really want to talk to you about is the leading domestic hope in this spot, and that's Time to Dream, 5-1.
So
okay, you're not sanguine on the chances of Time to Dream.
No, and the thing is, I'm afraid that Time to Dream's price is going to be based on an erroneous viewpoint or thought process on her last race, and I think that there's a bad trip handicapping lesson to be had with her last race. And I saw people say things like it was a horrible trip. It was a brutal trip. It was this and that. If I bet horses from the 12 in 2-turn turf races at Keeneland for the rest of my life, and you tell me they're going to get that trip, I'd sign up in a heartbeat. She got to the fence. She saved all kinds of ground the entire way. Irad was a little unlucky in mid-stretch. And if he had to do it over again, he would have probably tried to get her out a little bit earlier. She was not held up long enough to keep her from winning. She could have definitely won that race. I thought she was a filly that did not perform at the same level that she did in the PG Johnson. There are better domestic fillies than her already, Pete. I believe that. I believe that firmly. I'm not certain she's any better than the 1-2 finishers from the race that she exits. So she would be a sell for me at that price. I will tell you this much in my limited viewpoint of this race and you discussing Precise. This might be the best female horse that Aidan O'Brien has sent over for this race, period. And, with all due respect to Lake Victoria and some of the others that we've seen, she's really good. And, the only thing I wonder about them is Ryan Moore is not back riding, right?
Correct.
So Sumion is going to ride these horses.
I don't know if that's been made official yet, but it seems like a reasonable supposition.
Yeah, I love Christoph. I think he is I've met him a couple times. I think he's a tremendous rider. But that being said, Ryan Moore rides the American racetracks really, really well. Now, one thing that makes me think that Christoph will be able to, even though this isn't what we're talking about, is that he's aggressive and he'll move quickly. So I don't think you're going to catch him wildly out of position all that often. And I think that'll ultimately make a big difference.
Let's talk about the juvenile Ted Nafi heading proceedings in a big way. 10-11 at the sharpest book, evens and 11-10 at the other places that currently have prices. Would you be with or against Ted Nafi at even money?
Even money, just saying the word seems like it's so hard to take, but you look through the PPs for this race and he's just a cut above all of them based on who's going. So, he's a hold. I'm not buying at that price, but okay. I'm not looking to take a big swing against him. I'm going to be interested to see what the workout reports have on Brandt and everybody else. Brandt's been he's been a wishy-washy workhorse. I'd like to see Intrepido work well once or twice prior to this race as well. He feels like he could be interesting, and quite honestly, he's not that far off. I also I'm intrigued by the fact that now Kenny McPeak has decided to send Blackout Time, and I wonder in a race with a little bit more pace if he might be able to bridge some of that gap between he and the favorite.
Future Stars Friday concludes with the Juvenile Turf. Gustad, who's been so impressive for the Coolmore team, hardening all the time in the betting, making it seem like he's the one that's going to be going over. And I wonder if that means Puerto Rico's participation in doubt. Anyway, we'll know more about that. We don't need to focus too much on those. I want to talk to you about the better of the domestic runners. And one price in particular I was going to throw out to you, Botas, a horse we've talked about, 14-1 at the sharpest book. Buy, sell, or hold there.
I would buy at 14-1. I don't really know why this horse should be that big a price. He's not run poorly at all. If Final Score was going to be the most fancied American runner, speed figure wise, they were on par with one another. Botas a little bit better in his most recent start. So at 14-1, I would absolutely buy. And I look forward to Flavien getting back on. Manny did nothing wrong last time at all, but obviously Flavien with a ton of familiarity at a place like Del Mar. So yeah, I think, what do I think Botas's biggest problem is? I think the Euro contingent here is going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, it does seem like the fact that he's that price actually in the betting right now tells you there's going to be a bunch of Euros coming over. We'll have full analysis of them in several places. And if you're an In the Money Plus person, we'll even have it in terms of speed figure equivalents.
And I'll just say on that, over the years, really digging into these races, you would see the names of races and you would see, the Dewhurst and the Vincent O'Brien race, the Jean-Luc Lagardère, and you would see horses that were also Rans. Now you're seeing the horses that are winning those races, right? And so, and it only makes sense because with the amount of money that we have to offer to these horses that are really only going to run one more time before the end of the year, it makes a ton of sense. The other variable that they don't have to worry about is that they know they're getting firm ground.
Yes.
So if you've got a firm ground horse that one, you can afford to make one more start with them, you'd be a fool not to try.
Yeah, you can tell that these horses are bouncing back great at Coolmore, at Ballydoyle rather, just by the fact that they just keep sending better and better ones. When I was there earlier this year, I was just amazed by the intricacies of the process that go into shipping these horses. And it does make me, we've seen plenty of other people who aren't, Aidan O'Brien send horses that run successfully at the Breeders' Cup and elsewhere. But when you've done it, when you've got a system, it just gives you that much more of an advantage. We're going to get so much good stuff on these horses.
I'll tell you the other amazing thing too, Pete. I look at pictures of myself from 5 or 6 years ago, and I've aged tremendously. Aidan O'Brien looks exactly the same as he did 20 years ago. You can find a Breeders' Cup video of Johannesburg winning, and you see Aidan O'Brien, especially when he's got the shades on, he looks exactly the same.
There's a museum in Zurich with his picture hanging on the wall.
It's incredible. The man is absolutely ageless.
Great stuff. We had such a nice time getting to meet him over there, and also Joseph O'Brien taking us around his yard. What an incredible chip off the block he is, and great guy, full of terrific information. I just can't wait to be bringing it to everybody. Make sure you subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel. We're going to have a good first look at these European contenders, actually probably just later this week, because I'm not sure if we'll pull in Vanessa or Nick or who, but we're going to make sure to get you all you need on these fascinating contingent of runners. Filly and Mare Sprint. So this is interesting. Only the sharpest book and one other have prices. Copian now is the favorite right there at the top of the market, 5-2. Very hard for our game, though, to play buy, sell, hold, because we know that she's only maybe going here. So instead, I think I'm going to pivot, Nick, if you don't mind, and ask you about Sweet Azteca instead at 3-1, second choice right now. I guess I'll ask it this way. If Copian goes, is it a penalty kick for her? And if not, what about 3-1 on Sweet Azteca?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, if what's on paper right now goes, and obviously one of these Saffie Joseph Jr. horses that has speed is going to go, I'm assuming it's Our Disaster. That's going to make Sweet Azteca's job a lot harder. So she would be a sell for me at 3-1. I wouldn't really want any part of her at that price. The other thing is if Copian doesn't go here, that means Tamara is, and Tamara is not letting any of those horses get too far away anyway.
Right.
And, I think as Richard Mandel has proven us time and again, when his horses are playing a home game, their chances improve immensely. So yeah, I wouldn't be in a big hurry to bet Sweet Azteca at 3-1.
It's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing. I think Our Disaster is skipping. I think they were worried about the 7, but that's not confirmed. It's just scuttlebutt I'm hearing. We'll wait and see what happens as far as the Saffie contingent go in the Filly and Mare Sprint. We'll move on to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Very interesting race. And this is one where it does seem like the home team's going to have some foreigners to deal with, but I do think, at least according to the markets right now, we're going to have the favorite right now. Not a lot between AG Bullet and Motorious, 5-1 and 9-2 right now. AG Bullet being 5-1. What do you think of those prices relative to both of their chances?
Yeah, they seem fair. I don't really have an argument. Motorious is so good on his home turf, and just about ran a winning race in this race last year. Was beaten only by an incredible ride on Starlust. He's been campaigned a little gingerly, I would say. He's a horse that hasn't run much. This is only going to be his fourth start since last year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, which is a tad amazing. The concern you always have with him is that you'd have with any off-the-pace horse going 5/8, right? You need to come up basically lucky sevens the whole way in order to get the right kind of trip. I do think the European contingent is going to be pretty forceful. Arizona Blaze nearly won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint last year. Probably with a bit better trip could have done so at 27-1. And there's going to be plenty of speed in here that will probably help a horse like Motorious. Probably won't hurt AG Bullet. All in all, she rated very effectively last year in this race. So they feel like they're properly priced at 9-2 and 5-1 respectively.
Holds
so hold, I guess, on both.
Yeah, holds for you in the turf sprint. Always a chaotic and interesting race. How about the sprint? Weeks ago on this show, we were talking about the 8-1s that were available on Ben Tornado and drooling at the prospect. That price has been corrected. The best price I'm seeing now is 3-1. How much do you like Ben Tornado's chances? Buy, sell, or hold 3-1 in the Breeders' Cup Sprint?
I mean, there's something that is always going to forever make me feel a little sort of idiotic touting 3-1 shots, but he's a buy for me at 3-1.
I like it.
He's to me the likeliest winner of this weekend.
Wow,
in my opinion, and I don't have many concerns. I think he is positioned perfectly to win this race, and I'm looking forward to taking him. If he's 3-1, I'm still on board.
Okay, love that. Breeders' Cup Distaff, another horse you mentioned, went a much better price just a few weeks ago. I think it was 6-1 or 7-1 on Seismic Beauty was available then. Since, with all the defections, etc., that number has come in to more than a little bit. 2-1 now. Best price available. Seismic Beauty. Is she going to run to if she runs to the figures, she's going to make that look like a gift. But this is going to be the toughest test she faces, and Philly like Nitrogen certainly no joke in against her. I'm a little holdy, honestly, at the 2-1, but I might be leaving some money on the table. Where are you with 2-1 Seismic Beauty right now in the Distaff?
Yeah, 2-1 short. Obviously, as you alluded to, she's benefited tremendously from the defections. But, I feel like because she hasn't run that much and because she ran on Memorial Day weekend and then on Whitney Day, everybody just sort of overlooked. I think we saw, it was a small field in a grade 1 Distaff race in California. Obviously, I handicap Del Mar every day, and I was like, she's pretty good. And I kind of hope she runs again before the Breeders' Cup. But I think once everybody saw the defections, and wait until they get a set of PPs, right? I mean, she's an absolute
double fig
on paper.
Yeah, should be a double fig, right? I mean, I'm not having it in front of me yet, but I mean, those last two races are huge numbers.
No, she's 104, 110 coming in. And I mean, this is 104 and 110 earned against horses like Splendora, Copian, Ricci. Like, these are legitimate fast horses. So, I'll tell you this. If you like her, you're going to take 2-1 because on the day she's going to be less than that.
Yes.
She has every opportunity in this race to go off to me as low as 6-5.
I was thinking the same thing. You could really see the money aligning as the PPs get in people's hands on that one. And we'll see what the pace shakes out to be as well. We'll talk about the Breeders' Cup Turf next, where more good news. Sounds like superstar Mini Hawk is going to be making the trip over. Even money, the best price on her. But rather than, I know you're going to do all the work on these Euros, but we're a little early for that before the pre-entries. So the one that I'll ask you about in terms of the price is Rebels Romance, bidding to become a 3-time Breeders' Cup Turf winner, and you can get 3-1 on that proposition right now. Buy, sell, hold.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, he was 19-10 in last year's Breeders' Cup Turf. So, I mean, 3-1 feels fair, right? This is shaping up as one of the most unbelievable matchups of the weekend if these two are going to square off, Rebels Romance and Mini Hawk. I know there was some discussion of Ombudsman running here, but I think that's gone by the boards. I would look, if you like, he's a hold for me at 3-1. I don't have any argument against him. I thought he was really good last time out, beating his stablemate and redistricting, who's no bum. So this just has the makings of a really, really fun matchup. And we've seen Aiden bring horses that had success in the arc back quickly. And Minnie Hawk is coming back, and it's a month. But she's a filly, obviously, who likes firm ground very much. And, Aiden's going to give her every opportunity in those kind of races.
Ombudsman out of the betting at the sharpest book. So I think you're probably right that they're not going to go against the let Rebels Romance be the prime color bear. If there's another one in royal blue in that race, it might be maybe Cordobas, who's still in here. Yeah, we'll see how they end up playing it. We'll see who all shows up. But yeah, Rebels Romance, I mean, I don't mind that at all. I mean, Minnie Hawk is supposed to beat him, but it's just he's so good that I feel like that there'd be a little bit too much in that 3-1 price. Certainly in verticals, those two are going to be all over the tickets. We'll see if there's another one we have to include as we get the full listing of who all's going to turn up for this first Saturday in November. The unusual TV-related schedule. We have the Classic next, actually, and the favorite is going to be Sovereignty. His place is a few different quotes given out there, but generally speaking, 6-4, so 3-2 in our language. Buy, sell, hold.
3-2, he's the biggest sell of the weekend. You can't take that price on this horse in this field. This field is much tougher than anything he's faced, Derby included. And whether what shakes out with regards to the pacemaker potentially, this is a situation where this horse is going to have to overcome a bit of a negative pace scenario. He can be a lot more forwardly placed, obviously, than a horse like Sierra Leone. But that's a bad price to take on this horse in this race. I think if you took out, it's impossible to do, and it's kind of a wild hypothetical, but if you just treated the Derby as any other Grade 1 race, and you treated the Belmont as any other Grade 1 race, he'd be about a 3-1 favorite in here. Right? He'd be favored, but the fact that the names of the races that he won are so significant, which they are, nothing will ever take that away from him. That's what's really driving his price down so much, and those are the opportunities we look for, right? Those are the horses that we look to bet against.
I'm going to read you the others under 20-1 and give you their prices and ask.
And I can quickly tell you buy, sell, or hold. How about that?
Oh, that's great. I was only going to make you do one, but we can do them all. All right, let's buy, sell, or hold all the 20-1 sub shots. 11-2 Sierra Leone.
Hold.
6-1 Fierceness.
Buy.
8-1 Forever Young.
Hold.
12-1 Journalism.
Sell.
12-1 Mind Frame.
Sell.
16-1 Baeza.
Major sell.
Oh, interesting. You are anti-Baeza. Well, we're going to have a much longer conversation about this classic. We'll leave it here.
It is a classic. It is truly a race deserving of its name.
Yeah, it is incredible. And we'll go through the whole thing before too long, because you said you had some good provocative ones there. We'll see if there's a minute at the end. Maybe we'll even come back to it. But I want to get through all of these first in the time frame we have allotted, and that means next we've got the Breeders' Cup Mile, where we're seeing 5-2 on Notable Speech, a Euro that we're familiar with. Henri Matisse in the betting at 8-1, and behind him, Lion in Winter, who was so impressive over the weekend, another at 8-1. But let's just talk Notable Speech. 5-2 sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, based on what we saw from him at Woodbine and what we saw from him in last year's mile, where he was 2-1, 5-2 feels like a proper pricing. So he'd be a hold or a buy for me, somewhere in that range. I think, depending on exactly who else surfaces in terms of the field shaking out. But yeah, it feels like a proper pricing, if not maybe trending a little bit towards value.
Yeah. Dirt Mile will be next on the card, the penultimate race for those playing in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, perhaps on twinspires.com. Nisos heads the betting. There's only two price quotes on him, 7-4 and 9-4. So, a little bit over, or a little bit under 2-1. Looks like the price on Nisos. Does he deserve to be that big of a favorite over the likes of Full Serrano and Locked and Citizen Bull and Mystic Dan and all the rest?
Full Serrano is going to give this horse a real try. And White Barrio is not impossible either. So I'd be inclined to bet against him. He'd be a sell for me at that short, at a buck 0.75 or so, just because of the inactivity. He's obviously brilliantly talented, but incredibly fragile. And I still am of the opinion that Bob saw what he was going to have to run against in the Pacific Classic, wanted no part of it. And obviously we all sort of have to trust Bob implicitly with this kind of horse, but I wouldn't be in a big rush to take him off the layoff.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like that's an okay price against this group, but I also understand wanting to fish. You can tell stories. I mean, there's horses that have things that need to be explained away, but I mean, Whiteborough, we know he's got going days, he has non-going days. If it's a going day, his numbers are as good as anybody in the race. I thought Locked was an interesting one, watching some of his tape back this week, that I thought he had more excuses than I thought, and looked a little bit better than I thought. Do you give him any count in a spot like this?
I thought I read the other day they're going to still run him in the Classic. Is that not there? I know I had seen him on the Dirt Mile Possibles. A mile is probably, this is definitely a better spot for him. He has absolutely no chance in the Classic, and that's coming from a Locked fan. But he has no shot.
The current betting suggests Dirt Mile still, but these things are changing all the time, and they may cross enter, and we might not know until another further week.
Exactly, we wouldn't know until Monday, right? I mean, I would probably take him at 8 or 10s in the Dirt Mile. I'd hope there was a little bit more speed, but I mean, there's probably enough to set him up. What I'll tell you about Full Serrano is that there's two versions of Full Serrano, right? There's the one that we've seen run 3 times in this country, including his allowance win this year. And then there's the one that we saw in last year's Pacific Classic and last year's Dirt Mile. And the one in last year's Pacific Classic and last year's Dirt Mile, that horse can give Nysos a major challenge.
Yeah, it's actually it's not my favorite race of Breeders' Cup weekend, but it does provide some interesting stuff. Somebody said the other day, asked me about, entries. You guys are doing analysis before the pre-entries. It's like, well, yeah, because there's so much, and there's going to be so much content coming down the pike, that this gives us an opportunity to get started and get our heads around these horses. And I mean, more listeners like it than don't like it. But I did just want to say it's just about, not wanting too much of a glut of content. And for me, when there's this much form to look at, the earlier I get started, the more my opinions are going to be able to evolve until we get to that live stream final answer show we're going to be doing for our friends at Spendthrift the week of, when we can really give the conclusion. But for me, the Breeders' Cup is a weeks long process. Does that jibe with you, or am I forcing you to do this?
Oh no, 100%, absolutely. And we've got a good idea who a lot of these horses are and where they're going. So yeah, there's every opportunity to take a look.
Filly and Mare Turf, Cinderella's Dream. We know all about her. 7-2 top of the market. She feels pretty. Interestingly, as short as 3-1 in some places, 9-2 at the sharpest book. I'll just have you comment on She Feels Pretty and or Cinderella's Dream, and then maybe we will go back to the Classic for a minute.
Yeah, Cinderella's Dream is going to come in with, I guess, probably a little bit darkened form relative to last year when she ran very well in this race as the 5-2 favorite. She has lost her last 2. They were tough races, the Prix Jean Romanet and the Sun Chariot. I still think they're really trying to figure out what she wants to do distance-wise, and it is notable to me that Appleby did clearly back her up and trip this year. So I do wonder if, she's a filly that might benefit from, if she stays in training, this race shortening up in the future. She's a hold, mainly because to me She Feels Pretty is just a huge sell. I did not like the race she ran at Woodbine. I have no great hope that she's tacking another furlong onto it. Didn't look like she really wanted much more than that. I do think she'll benefit from the super firm turf. I think she's been at her best on very firm turf, but yeah, I'm not in a big rush to bet She Feels Pretty in here.
Heading back to the Classic just for a minute to button things up. Indeed, Locked is listed in the betting now in both places. 8-1 Dirt Mile, 33-1 in the Classic. But I just wanted to put that out there, FYI. Says to me, I don't think the final decision has been made. But yeah,
33-1 in the Classic is a sell.
That's a tough sell, but you're not going to get. It's one of those things you're going to get away with it, but I generally don't recommend the strategy.
If you want some action at the Locked at 33-1, people know where to find me.
DM him and over there. Of the numbers that I quoted you, what were you the most excited about? I mean, you were hard selling these other 3-year-olds, which I thought was interesting. Why don't we start there?
I mean, I'm a fierceness guy as far as the Classic goes. I love the races he's run there. And, to be honest, Pete, if they run the Rabbit, I'm not all that worried about it because there isn't a lick of speed outside the Rabbit. And Johnny can let the Rabbit just go on and do what he wants to do and basically lead the rest of the field. So I think he's in a tremendously advantageous position. I thought his workout last week was really, really good. He's a flashy workhorse anyway, but to be on the inside doing what he did at Saratoga, he looks like he's coming into it really in fine fashion. So I think he's the one at 6-1 for me that I absolutely want to bet. Journalism, to me, I know there's chatter about distance and this and that. They changed the jockey. I don't really think that makes any difference whatsoever. Journalism's an admirable horse. He's easily one of the easiest horses to like in the game. He's just not of this caliber at 10 furlongs. There are classics where he would have been a major contender. Yeah. I think last year's is a good example. I think he would have been a better contender last year. He still would have been a fringe player, but this year you have a combination of top flight 3-year-olds and really good older horses. My Baeza problem is I don't think Baeza wants to go 1.25 miles. Mm-hmm. I get it. This is probably a quicker 1.25 miles than you're going to find anywhere else. He was starting to swim a little bit late last time out. I know he had a good trip in there. He was a little wide. He probably wanted to be inside on that day. That was Magnitude and Gosger and those kind of horses. This is a different ball game. I mean, this is getting called up from AA to pitch in a major league game.
How about a word on Mindframe? This is a horse I keep looking at and saying, it just seems like the horse in here. I could also see this with Baeza, actually, a horse that we look at the end of the day, and the horse paid, in Baeza's case, $32, and in Mindframe's case, maybe $25. And you say, ooh, I probably should have. It kind of looked like that on paper. You know, there's stories to be told. But where are you with Mindframe writ large?
I mean, he rates to get a good trip, right? Because he's supposed to be just off of Fierceness. Fierceness is a lot faster than him naturally early. I still think the 1.25 miles is beyond his scope. I don't really think it's what he wants. The Foster was his lone opportunity at 1.125 miles this year. And I think if that race was a furlong longer, and with it having a slow pace, Sierra Leone wins comfortably. So that would be my concern with him. I will say, though, creeping into the 11, 12, 13-1 range, you're starting to talk about a price where you're going to be willing to take a chance.
Yeah, probably have to allocate some money there in the horizontal bets for me. I can't wait to talk about these races more with you, with the viewers. Please leave us a comment. Let us know who you want to bet at this year's Breeders' Cup. You can use the prices we just gave as a guide. You can just give us your own opinions. But you've heard from us. We want to hear from you. Subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel while you're over here. And Nick, we will be talking soon.
Sounds great, my friend. Enjoyed it.